All right. Ready? We good?
I think we are good, sir.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. So we have my name's 9K. I'll be hosting the AMA today. Our guest is Pine Sap. And he's a streamer. He streams, does political content. He was on Jubilee with Mehdi Hassan. A lot of you guys might be familiar with the video. The video went viral. Um, Unfortunately, Connor actually ended up losing his job after the video, which is very unfortunate. Um, and a lot of people, had some things to say about what was discussed in the video, stuff like that. So today we're doing an AMA with PineSap. You guys can ask him anything. I will link, just before we get started, I'm going to make this easy for everybody here. So everybody should be able to see the side chat, but for the sake of clarity, I'm going to link these channels in the side chat right here. So the rules for the event are simple. So people can come up, ask questions, challenge Connor on any of his political views, obviously. Just make sure that we're staying respectful. Don't come up, don't start screaming slurs. If you guys start coming up saying slurs, stuff like that, you're gonna get removed, probably banned from future events. In the side chat, I linked two channels. You can discuss the AMA here, and then there's a questions channel. And if you guys want to ask your questions in text chat, I'll read them out occasionally between people who come up. And that's for people who don't want to come up. If you have a question and you type it in the text channel, just put like VC question, and I'll bring you up. All right. We ready, Connor? You ready to bring? Do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think we're all ready to go.
Okay. All right. Oh, and for Connor's stream, you're on YouTube, not Rumble, right?
So I don't have my Rumble going currently. I'm streaming this on YouTube, X, and Kick as we speak.
All right. I will link the YouTube one in the side chat, and then I will link the X and Kick one when I get them.
Awesome.
All right. The first person that's up is Geo. I'm actually going to bring Geo up since he was the first one here. So Geo, come on up and go ahead.
Yo, what's up, Tubby?
Right, that's a little
not so nice.
My bad. Okay, we'll be kind. Don't worry. Yo, Pine. Okay, so Pine Sap, my question to you is: you stated you believe in fascism or some sort of like clerical fascism, is what I'm assuming you believe in. And my question is more so, what are the economic entailments of that? Meaning, so how would it relate to the means of production? And can you provide a justification for that?
That's so that's a good question, but let me unpack it. So my comment on the debate with Mehdi Hassan about, him calling me a fascist and saying, yeah, I am, was more a rhetorical trick than me saying I really believe in fascism or anything like that. The reason why I said that is because I think oftentimes liberal figures in politics sort of use terms like that to try and debilitate actual discussion with right-wing figures or with religious figures. And so for me, I wasn't really looking to play his game. So if he was going to call me that, I was just going to say, hey, whatever, call me a fascist. I don't care. My politics are Catholic, and because of that, they follow Catholic social teaching. So since they follow Catholic social teaching, there's a couple economic models that you could say would be kind of close to the ones that I would endorse, such as like corporatism or distributism, things along those lines where really it's not a system, not that I've studied economics in depth, but from what I can say is that it's a system that kind of puts people first, right? So the people are the concern. Really in regards to like business owners versus workers, business owners and workers kind of work in this symbiotic relationship where they are able to work to each other's betterment. The worker's not trying to go after the business owner. The business owner is not trying to economically exploit the worker, but both have their mutual interest at kind of the center of their heart and mind. Really, I think something like hierarchy is not bad. It's just how it's used, right? And I think that's something that a lot of left-wing figures will oftentimes criticize, where you see these hierarchies exist and it's used as sort of a means of exploiting workers, and then they then advocate for essentially abolishing all hierarchy at that point. And right-wing figures acknowledge a lot of right-wing figures, I'm thinking more like kind of capitalists, your Frederick Hayek individuals or what have you, will acknowledge that those hierarchies exist, but then they'll kind of almost endorse this sort of like maybe crony capitalism, or this idea that, whatever the almighty dollar says is law. And I think really Catholic social teaching avoids both extremes, where it acknowledges that hierarchy, especially in the means of production or what have you, is very much a reality of politics and economic life, but it doesn't have to lead to either party being exploited, abolished, or hurt.
Okay, so my question to you then is, can you demonstrate how we currently live in crony capitalism, or that the fact that is that America actually is like subservient to the dollar, or somehow way? More interestingly, you stated that there's an exploitative relationship between employees and employers.
Right.
I'm more so curious, can you even justify that? That doesn't even exist.
It very much exists. I mean, the fact that you have entire businesses now AI washing people, Oracle, I think fired something like 40% of its employees just overnight. People who had been working there like for a very long time, they put in their hours, they were good employees, and they use the justification of AI to essentially get rid of all these hard workers. Or something like how our economy is seeing sort of the erosion of, not working class jobs, white collar jobs, right? Where either they're using AI as an excuse to replace those jobs, senior level positions that they don't restaff for, or just abolishing entry level positions to begin with. And on top of that, you do see the introduction of H-1B workers replacing sort of native-born workers in their stead. And I think it was Lucky Palmer who developed Oculus Rift, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too familiar with his history.
He did. He started at 17 years old.
Yes. So
can I interject at any point, or?
Let me just finish this. But he basically remarked how H-1B visas, right, that whole system is used as a way to exploit both the people that are on them, right? It's basically like a new subservient slave class. And then it's also to debilitate, again, native-born workers, because at that point, what winds up happening is you're hiring these people for much less than you would a native-born worker. You're not giving them the same benefits. They're willing to work for much less because they just want to escape the economic, cultural, and political situation in their prior country.
Okay, there's a few misnomers there. I think the first one I'm going to point out is I think has to do with H-1B. First of all, H-1B, the amount of people that are being hired off H-1B has actually decreased over the last 2 years since the introduction of AI.
I don't think that's remotely true.
Okay, this is an empirical position. We could just cite the empirics on this. I will do that later. Just give me a moment. Second of all, I would like to say that there's no way to prove, or you can substantiate the reasoning for why an employee should have the right to terminate a contract of employment at any point in time, whereas the employer has no right to do that. It doesn't really make any sense. It seems like an employer is stuck in this contractual agreement where something that is no longer viable should be sustained just for the mere fact that because someone is an employee. I think this is like just merely something that people say because obviously they just feel empathy for an employee, because I think you yourself are an employee and you are personally affected by the fact that you were fired from your job, whereas the employer had every right to fire you from your job. And I think any restrictions upon that is a bit absurd. It kind of is like a continuation of the very liberal thing, Pinesap, by the way, where a lot of people who are on the far left very commonly want to basically certify these people's positions in companies at the detriment of even business owners because they hate business owners. You yourself probably hate business owners as well because you are fired by a business owner.
Are you done?
I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm done. You can respond to any of that.
So what I would say...
I'll cite the H1B thing, by the way, in the side chat as well.
Okay. So what I would say, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but one of the things is that while I agree that an industry that can't be sustained doesn't need to be propped up, right? That also goes for the hiring of H-1B workers. I mean, I saw recently a clip on YouTube where there was this woman complaining about how her farm couldn't be run without, well, and actually in this case, it was illegals. Let me correct my position. It was illegals that she was complaining about, basically migrant labor, but you could kind of bring that over to H-1Bs as well. The idea that that her business model of this farm was not sustainable in hiring native born workers. And so she needed basically this slave class, whether it was like illegal migrants coming over the border and being hired on, or even at that point, you could say H-1Bs, because, you know, she needs to pay, I'd say, a lot less in terms of hiring them on, or they're willing to work for a lot less. So you very much do see this effect in our society where people are getting their entire job outsourced. I mean, I have a friend who works at Visa right now who he is the only white guy on his team. You know, nobody else on his team is native born. They're all Indian. Clearly, this is kind of a fixture of now the current business culture in America. And, you know, I don't doubt maybe because of AI, maybe less H-1Bs are being hired, but of the jobs that are still existing that haven't been knocked out because of AI, there's very much this H-1B problem that makes it a situation where even less native-born workers are able to find gainful employment, right? Now, in regards, I think I kind of touched on this a little bit, but in regards to basically propping up or keeping up industries that are no longer sustainable, look, I'm all for innovation or what have you, but I think what's happening is that you know, AI with its objective intelligence is now being used to basically work jobs that are very much subjective intelligence, or intelligence where it's not something like calculating a math problem or what have you, where AI can go in, probably do that, you know.
What the fuck is subjective intelligence, bro? That was just a made-up term.
Subjective intelligence refers to like creative writing and stuff like that.
Okay, so yeah, so objective intelligence is not a thing, by the way. Neither is subjective intelligence.
That is a term used.
If you're using
that is a term used, right?
If you're using something completely idiosyncratic, that's fine. But I just was curious what that meant. But you need to like you know, keep these points quick and concise, because obviously you're doing something called gish galloping, where you make a series of points that are very difficult to respond to all of them. But just mainly keep it on point. I want the exact refutation to the fact that why should employers be obligated to hire American workers, and why should employees also have the right over the employer to leave their job, whereas the employer has no right to fire them?
Because if you're an American company and you're operating within this nation, we need to do what's best to the health of this nation, not the almighty dollar. That's the whole thing. It depends on what your moral proposition is, or sort of the basis on which you set your morality, right? So in your case, you seem like someone who cares far more about money than the American people. You probably don't care. And so for somebody to get hired from a foreign-born country or get their job knocked out, it doesn't matter to you because you just worship money. Me, on the other hand, I look at my people, I look at the people in this country who are suffering, who can't pay their bills, who aren't able to afford healthcare or what have you, and I say, there is something wrong with this economic system that basically perpetuates the ability for a company to, again, knock out these benefits that years ago they had no problem giving out to their workers, right? It's that my moral framework does not rest on productivity or this sort of utilitarian, whatever's good for, or not utilitarian, but sort of utility of what's ever good for the company. I'm about what's good for, again, the people in this country. Because if politics is not serving this country, then we're engaging in just sort of this self-indulgent ideological circle jerk.
You've quite literally bit into every single fucking retorted pill that the left has been espousing for years.
Okay.
Namely, the first one being, you just stated that companies give less and less welfare to the people that it employs. That's not true. First of all, median wages have significantly increased because
how many people are able to get those jobs though? Because you keep bringing up this whole thing of
fat fuck.
Hey,
stop interrupting, bro.
Listen, okay, get this guy off the stage. Come on, get this guy off the stage. He's just wasting our fucking time. Come on. Get this guy the fuck off the stage, man.
All right, I want to bring up the next person.
I'm all for challenging ideas, but it's like that guy comes in and he's like, "Hey, Tubby," and all that kind of stuff. I'd fucking mog that dude in real life.
All right, Geo. Geo, I had to kick you out. Guys, everybody, just a reminder, if you're going to come up on stage and you want to, challenge or maybe have a short debate, that's cool, but make sure you're keeping it respectful. We aren't doing this whole insulting back and forth thing. It just wastes time. So
I'm all for disagreeing. That's fine. I have no issue with that, but we should have mutual respect and sort of rapport with each other to not be insulting each other. That guy was honestly just an asshole.
Yo, what's going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, 9K? You doing good?
I'm good. I'm good. Do you have a question?
Yes. Yeah, I got a question for Pine Sap actually. Pine, what's your opinion on abortion?
I'm completely against abortion in all cases.
In all cases.
Yes.
Well, can we agree that abortion, right? Well, actually, I want to ask you, how do you define abortion? Do you define it as just like the termination of the human life within the womb?
It's the willful termination of a life within the womb. So if you have a situation where there's a baby and, they otherwise would be, I think the term's gestating, growing in the mother's womb, and you go in and willfully kill that child, that's what I define abortion as.
Uh-huh. All right, so I find it like super extremely like hypocritical as a Catholic. You're saying that you're against abortion when your God commands you to kill babies, right?
Are you referring to the Old Testament?
Yeah, so I'm referring to 1 Samuel 15:3, where your God, he commanded people to kill babies, right, within the womb, right? He told them to literally get a sword and pierce the pregnant woman's stomach, right? So do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand. I'm Catholic, right? So here's the thing, right? With the Old Testament and the prescriptions on war. Go ahead.
What's the symmetry breaker between your God commanding them to kill babies versus like a doctor just like doing it, right?
Well, I don't think an art hoe spreading her legs and getting knocked up and willfully killing her child is quite the same as a prescription within war, but I'll cover that. So there's a wonderful author, Paul Copan. If you're ever interested in doing a further study on kind of the Old Testament or Old Testament, apologetics or what have you, I highly recommend him. But what I'll say is that in regards to the war against like groups like the Amalekites, the Canaanites, or what have you, God is the giver and author of life, right? Every life is a gift, right? It's a gift that we don't deserve. It's a gift that he willfully gives to us. And so it's his right to take. Now, with a particular group of people, right, like in the Old Testament, showing that group and saying, hey, this group needs to be wiped out, is God looking and asking, really kind of in that situation, is this a group of people that are going to turn to me? Are they going to live righteously? Are they going to live according to how I made them? Or have they degenerated into their evil so much that there's really no saving these people, right? So because of that, God was able to go in and say, I know that the Canaanites are not going to turn back to me. They are only going to perpetuate evil. They have to be smited out. Right. And so it was a specific command referring to the idea that this group of people were not going to turn back to God. They had negated the gift of life that he had given them. And so thus it was just him being the author of life to take back the gift that he had willfully given to them.
You're just repeating yourself. So anyways, so number one, you made a couple points, right? So number one, it's not the fact that just a woman gets knocked up for spreading her legs. You're against abortion in all cases. So even if a woman got raped, right, you would still be against abortion. So it's not, don't like try to paint a picture like, oh, it's the woman, spreading her legs, getting fucked by this guy and that guy, and it's her fault.
Well,
so
the reason I said that is because you already came off as aggressive. So if I'm dealing with someone aggressive, I'm going to come off aggressive. If you want to keep this respectful, then I can fully grant a case of rape. I know. I'm just clarifying. You can continue.
You're getting upset. I get it. You're getting upset. It's fine. Right? You can't defend your scripture. It's fine. So
of course.
Number one, you're against abortion even if a woman was to get raped. That's besides the point because you said all cases. Now, regarding your God, what you just described was a genocide, right? Because the babies, right? I just want to ask you, so we're on the same page. Do you believe the babies were innocent?
I think that God, in his foreknowledge, can look at a group of people and ask whether they're going to turn back to him and repent. And that's exactly what he did with the Canaanites and Amalekites.
So the babies, right? So the babies that were inside
the babies that would grow up to then be wicked and corrupt people. I don't know
why you had this need to,
the babies that would grow up to become wicked and corrupt people from the gift of life that God had given them. It was just for him to then order that group to be exterminated.
Like I don't get what you're trying to prove by screaming over me because you have a better mic than me or something.
But I'm not screaming over you. I'm answering your question.
Oh my god.
You seem to be getting really pressed, and you came up here pretty disrespectful, man. If you're going to be respectful and nice, I'm all willing to disagree.
I didn't come up here disrespectful. I just asked you a simple question, right?
Well, you're all smarmy.
Is when it's because you're interrupting me and you're not.
You were doing it before I interrupted you.
Oh my God. You just have like this, like, look, I get it. You have a comb over and a little button up. Just relax, dude. Just calm down. Okay, you're not mogging anybody. I don't know who you think you are. Just relax.
Okay.
Just have a
Do you,
regular
Jimmy,
conversation so we can
let's
just
go
speak.
back. So do you want to go back to the original question that you asked? Because we're gonna move on to the next person pretty soon.
Yeah. So just one, my bad. Well, so do you say this, like, so what is the symmetry breaker between your God, right, going in and commanding people to kill babies, like all over the Bible? It's not just through like one test, like what just with the Amalekites, right? I don't know if you ever read Hosea, right? But your God, he commanded people to go to pregnant women, right? And like literally cut open their stomachs, right? Your God also commanded like mothers and fathers to eat their babies, right? So it's not just the Amalekites, right? So what's the symmetry breaker here between your God commanding people to kill babies, which are still in the womb, versus like abortion?
Again, you're talking about a situation where God in his foreknowledge can see whether someone is going to be just or unjust. And on top of that, he gives the gift. Dude, you got to stop you got to stop interrupting. Again, you can't cry about interrupting and then interrupt me when I'm giving you an answer. Are you going to be nice? Are you going to be respectful? Are you going to be respectful?
This is my last question, and I want to get it answered. So
I'm answering your question right now. If you calm down, and let me answer it, I'm more than willing to answer it. Dude, stop belating the point. I was answering your question. Again, God is the author of life. He is the giver of life. When he gives us that gift, it is his to take, right? Now, God has never ordered the death of someone that was an unjust death, because if he is the author of justice, that means what his word is and what his command is justice. God, because he has the full picture, can know when he orders someone's death, whether they're going to be a just person, an unjust person, and thus it justifies his order. That is far different than a human being now in this time where nobody, again, is a part of any of these groups that you've cited, right? Nobody is in a capacity where they need to be kind of cut off the face of the earth, like the Amalekites, Canaanites, etc., where he needs to order them to be killed. Now, there are still cases after the Old Testament, of course, where God did strike someone down or God did punish them. I think this happened to, I'm trying to think of the Roman emperor that was trying to revive paganism, Julian the Apostate, right? I think Julian the Apostate would kind of be an example of like divine punishment or what have you. But that being said, again, if God is the author of life and life is a free gift that he gives us, it is his to call back. And with those people that he orders their death, right, he is the author of justice. And so we know if he orders something to be done, there is a just reason for doing so. He was maybe able to look and say, this person will not turn back to me. They will be an author of unrighteousness. And because of that, they need to be cut off.
All right. Appreciate that. I'm going to move this gentleman back down to the audience so we can move on to the next person.
Heck yeah. That sounds good. And sorry, and 9K, sorry for the contention on my end. I just feel like these first two callers, it's like they come in with this kind of disrespectful attitude. And look, even with someone who disagrees, I'm willing to have a perfectly respectful discussion. There's no problem there. But it's like, if you're going to come up and be smarmy or what have you, it's like you're bringing bad energy. You're bringing bad heat,
Yeah, of course, I 100% agree. I have a question for you. Do you know Nathan Bonnell, Destiny's son?
Yes.
He just messaged me. He wanted me to say hi for him.
Oh, heck yeah. Dude, Nathan's a great kid. I love that guy.
All right, I'll bring the next person up. Actually, I did tell Moon that I would read out her question. All right, question from Moon, and then I'll bring the next person up. Moon's she's a mod on the server. She's really good. Where is her?
Oh, heck yeah.
All right. She said, on the Surrounded show on Jubilee, you said that you were a fascist and didn't mind if people called you a Nazi. She said, do you still feel that way since you announced you were fired from your job? And do you have any regrets on anything that you said about anything that you said while you were on Surrounded? So the content of what I said, I have zero regrets about, but I would have worded everything differently if I was to do the episode again. And what I mean by that is, I'm not a Nazi. I'm not somebody who hates anyone according to the color of their skin or their background or anything like that. I am purely just somebody who loves God and wants a Catholic society, right? With my interaction with Mehdi, I knew he was going to use terms like Nazi, fascist, all these kinds of,
buzzwords or slurs to essentially dismiss the point that I was making because I believe in objective morality as a Catholic. And so for me to embrace the term like fascist or what have you was not to say, oh, I want people, goose stepping down the way, right down the street in Washington. It was to say that I don't care about what someone calls me. I know that because I am Catholic, I am on the side of Jesus Christ, and that is the political system and government that I support.
All right, I will bring up the next person, which is this gentleman. His name is Based Jew. All right, how's it going?
Alrighty.
Hey, good to see you.
Heck yeah.
Let me change my. So Pinecep, question: have you defended Francisco Franco before, the man who openly killed over 150,000 people by execution?
Do you mean the people he killed that raped nuns and killed priests? Those people?
There was no evidence of half of that, and you also
there
defended
was evidence of half of that. We have the pictures. We literally have the pictures of communists flicking cigarettes at nuns' exposed bodies and stuff like that. It's literally photographic evidence.
Right, except not all of the 150,000 were proven to be doing that. Yet you still openly justify the 150,000 plus deaths.
Oh no, the 150,000! No. Oh, communists and people who kill priests and rape nuns were killed. No, that's terrible, dude.
Franco has been openly accused of killing people as young as 3 years old, specifically in his execution campaigns. Of not just the.
Was that him doing that, or was that some random soldier?
He ordered his soldiers to do that. Franco was a known dictator and a big fanboy of Hitler.
Oh no, the big H word.
Yes. And then and also another thing I want to bring up is that whole thing about Jubilee, right? You went on there, got fired, and then proceeded to launch a $30,000 basically GoFundMe for your grift because you're a grouper.
Right. So I had no plan. Is that a question, or is this just a baseless attack?
Oh, I would say it's a little bit of a both. Why did you bother launching a basically a GoFundMe after you got basically canceled for your own actions?
Okay, well, the GoFundMe originally was not my idea. That was the idea of Elijah and Mike after I went into the studio of the Rift TV, and I was quite unhappy that I had been fired from my job because my job had been promised to me as a cancel-proof job, right? My employer was fine with me and stuff like that. He knew what I did. He knew that I was a Catholic apologist or what have you. And the only reason that I got fired was because of external circumstances not having to do really with my time working there, right? His hands were tied. And so I completely understand, why he was put in that position. It was an unforeseen thing. I'd never hid my views from him or anything like that. And, he was completely fine. His views are his own, of course, but I took my job knowing that it was someone who is perfectly fine with me being who I am, right? Now, when I got to the Rift TV studio, I was quite sad about being fired from my job. I had no plans to make a GoFundMe. Even when Mike and Elijah were talking to me about it, I said, are you guys sure or what have you? And Elijah verbatim said to me, he's like, we've done this for people before, even if it's just a little bit to help you while you find another job, that's the idea. It's a pretty stupid idea to get fired from a job, right? And have this plan to only make X amount of money and then risk, brand risk, never getting hired again or what have you. That's a really poor way to make money, right? So it was really just me trying to fly by the seat of my pants and figure out next steps. I was pretty crushed that day. I mean, I worked with a lot of people that I loved a lot. I was just trying to figure out next steps and where to go after that. So it was kind of just all put in my lap.
So what about your defense of Carl Schmitt?
My defense of Carl Schmitt. Carl Schmitt, as an academic, is referenced more by liberals and even conservatives. And again, I brought him up over the friend-enemy distinction. The idea that there are people who are willing to use the mechanisms of power in our government to exploit us, hurt us, what have you, right? You see this with the judicial branch and left-wing figures who throw right-wing people in jail for offenses that somebody would get a slap on the wrist for, or maybe like 1 year in prison, right? There's a very clear weaponization of our political systems in order to unfairly persecute right-wing and conservative individuals. Why did the FBI go after a pro-life activist that had, no terrorist plot? He wasn't doing anything malicious, yet he had his house raided.
Well, they most likely had some type of evidence against him.
Oh, I'm sure they had some type of evidence. Yeah, that's why they just, raided a family man's home randomly in the middle of the night. I mean, dude, if that was some random left-wing activist, you would be up in arms and claiming that Trump is, manipulating the FBI to go after him and stuff like that. But again, when it's a right-wing person, you excuse it. And there's another thing too. This is why all your kvetching and whining about Franco means nothing to me. It means absolutely nothing, because again, you are the kind of person who would defend if a liberal government or a communist government murdered priests, raped nuns like you did just there, denying that those things happen. And you're perfectly fine when it's your little government exploiting and hurting people. But when it's someone having a reaction against those forces and saying enough's enough, these churches are not going to be burned down, Catholics are no longer going to be persecuted, you openly defend it. So don't pretend, don't come on the stage and pretend like you're some moral arbiter, okay?
What about Adolf Hitler's persecution of the Catholic Church and the...
I think that was wrong. Guess what? I said that during the episode. I think that was wrong. I think it was even wrong that he persecuted Jews.
But you didn't, because then you made a weak pivot shortly afterwards.
Because the focus of Mehdi bringing that up is he does not care about Catholics. He's trying to use it as a slur because he knows the weight of solely bringing up the Holocaust in terms of how it affects Jewish people. That's why I focused on the church as well, because notice how we never talk about Catholics persecuted or what have you. It's only Jews. Because the worst thing, according to our society, is if a Jewish individual is ever... Jewish individuals are basically treated like this special class that's so much better than everyone else. And all I as a Catholic am saying is, hey, everybody has equality, right? I think a Jewish life matters as much as a non-Jewish life and vice versa. But Mehdi bringing that up knows the sort of moral weight of bringing up the Holocaust or bringing up Hitler. And he, again, is just trying to use it as a slur. So I'm not interested in engaging with slurs.
Now, why are you getting so heated? I haven't really said anything.
I'm getting heated because you denied that a persecution of my people, the people that, I love and pray with at every mass, happen. And you're coming up here and attacking me just like the first two callers, right? If you were more respectful or what have you, we could have a perfectly reasonable dialogue. But when you come in guns a-blazing, I'm going to fire back.
You openly didn't actually, saying that. And first and foremost, I didn't deny Catholics were killed. I never once said that. You just
no, but you just said it wasn't to the extent, it wasn't the margin, even though we have the pictures and evidence and stuff like that. Again, don't try to walk back your position, pal. Don't try to walk back your position. You came out here swinging and you were all disrespectful and stuff like that. Keep it respectful, okay? Then we can have a discussion.
Right, except the fact that one, you praise people like Carl Schmitt, a man who was directly responsible for many of the Nazi atrocities.
Again, the whining and special pleading when it affects people you care about, but when Catholics are killed or whatever, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that, according to you, right? Mm-hmm.
I did not say that. Do not put words in my mouth, first and foremost.
Oh no, you just deny genocides of Catholics. That's perfectly reasonable.
No, I don't. I don't deny the genocides of Catholics, Christians, Muslims, or any of those. Right? You, however, just keep pivoting to that because you've got no real strong basis for the fact, other than you said, "Oh, I think that's bad," but you openly, smirk and laugh about it. Because you openly don't give a fuck about Catholics.
I actually don't want to play games with someone who doesn't care about me and thinks I should be dead, which is Mehdi Hassan. And I'm not going to play games with you either because you clearly think the same as well. Yeah, I've heard it all before, pal. I've heard it all before. Let's get this baby off the stage, right? Let's let him go cry.
I got him kicked off. All right,
Oh no,
next
it's okay,
question.
man.
Actually,
Sorry, I'm engaging in theatrics. You're a wonderful host and stuff like that. Again, it's like I'm like if these people just came up and they were being nicer or whatever, we could have a discussion. Like I'm not offended by someone disagreeing. It's like, but they come up and they're like, "Hey, what's up, Pine Soup?" And I'm like, "Dude, just be nice." Like I'm not a mean guy. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I 100%. All right. Let's see. Next question. Okay, I will ask this question from Jenna. I am sorry if I mispronounced this, Jenna. The question is, she wanted me to ask you what you think of the, and I might mispronounce this, apocrypha.
Oh, the Apocrypha? Yeah. Oh, that's a great question, actually. Thank you for asking that, Jenna. So Apocrypha is a difficult term because it's used so many different ways. One of the ways that it's used is to refer to the deuterocanonical books that belong in Catholic Bibles. So that's seven books that are removed from most Protestant Bibles, like the KJV or the NASB, or any of those translations you would find at like a Lutheran parish or like an evangelical church. So if we're referring to that as the Apocrypha, that's just the Bible, right? Those are 7 books that early Christians took as scripture. We know they're divinely inspired because, the local councils of Rome, Carthage, and Hippo all confirmed them. They were confirmed at other councils such as Florence or Trent. And so in that way, those books are canonical and they belong to scripture. If we're talking about books like the Gospel of Thomas, in quotations, like more like Gnostic texts, or even sort of mythological texts that are like historical works, but they're not belonging to the content of scripture, like the Book of Enoch. Those books I don't believe are divinely inspired, nor do I believe that they belong to the canon of scripture, but some of them might give useful witness to kind of the times that the early Christians were living in. We might use them as like reference sources as to what was kind of the on the ground look of like the beliefs at the time or what have you. But that's a fantastic question.
Amazing. Awesome. She says thank you.
Heck yeah.
Okay, question from Anime King. Thoughts on Vatican II?
Oh, another dude. These are some bangers, actually. So originally when I became Catholic, I was not a fan of Vatican II. I thought that it was this like rupture in Catholic tradition. It was almost this like anti-council or what have you. And I actually went through a spiritual crisis in my first year of becoming Catholic because I was like, well, wait, I was promised that this was the church that, I could infallibly trust. I could put my hope in. I could know that God would not steer his church the wrong way. And what am I seeing? Like, it seems like there's this false council, and I'm hearing all these people from Eastern Orthodox to Sede Vacantis to people who belong to the Society of St. Pius X say all different kinds of things about, Vatican II or what have you. And I took a step back and, God really had this humbling effect of telling me I needed to learn more. And so I sat back and I learned more, and I actually went back to the documents. I read the relevant commentators on the documents or what have you. And I really came back and started to realize that there was this divine harmony amongst the council with the rest of Catholic teaching. Anywhere from Nostra Aetate to Lumen Gentium to Dignitatis Humanae, there was always this upholding of what the traditional teaching of Christ's church had been. And it made me completely change my view on Vatican II. And so from there, I actually got my start in apologetics that way. I was one of the only maybe kind of Gen Z people who had somewhat of a prominent voice defending the council in kind of a deeper way. And I never looked back. So I love Vatican II. I that's one of the things that I try to handle in kind of my Catholic apologetics the most.
Amazing. Awesome. I will bring up okay, this guy's name is Costco Hot Dog. He seems to have a good faith question, so I will
heck yeah.
him up.
I mean, with a name like that's a pretty goated name. So I hope he'll be respectful.
What's up, guys? I'm assuming you like Costco hot dogs.
Well, dude, Costco food's just good, man. I mean, you can't go wrong with that menu.
It's great. I'm all beef and 150, baby.
Heck yeah.
Anyways, let me get to my question. My question is, do you believe in successionism? And what that is that the old covenant was superseded by Christ's new covenant.
Oh, supersessionism?
Right? Or, yeah.
Okay.
And then, so this ties in kind of more broadly into kind of modern day Jews in the state of Israel. I think that we as Catholics, me personally, kind of view them as like kind of part of our religion, kind of part of us. But me personally, I believe they actually are in rejection of Christ. They are in rejection of the new covenant. But that's my question. So what's your view on all that?
That's a great question. So the church does, you'll hear maybe some Catholic Answers articles say some weird things about it, but they're actually ironically saying the same thing I am. The church believes in supersessionism, the idea that the sort of juridical law and the ceremonial law of the Old Covenant is no longer binding because it found its fulfillment in the person of Jesus Christ, but the moral law still stays the same. And now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's break that down. Oftentimes you'll hear maybe Reddit atheists be like, oh, if you're saying homosexuality isn't allowed, then, you can't be wearing polyester or eating shellfish. But that doesn't make a distinction between the moral law of, let's say, the Ten Commandments, which is forever binding and never changes, whereas the juridical law, the idea of sort of the dietary habits or particular sanctions against wearing like mixed fiber clothing or what have you were for that time specifically in order to set the Jewish people apart from the rest of the nations that lived around them. And so the faithfulness to that covenant has been superseded by the new and eternal covenant, which has kept the moral law like the Ten Commandments, but all those juridical laws, all those ceremonial laws, like the sacrifices at the temple, have found their fulfillment in the new covenant through Jesus Christ. And so that's what the church officially upholds. Now, there's understood that there is this sort of special relationship that the church has with Jews, but it's not like a salvific one. Jews have to become Catholic in order to be saved because all people have to become Catholic in order to be saved. But it's understood that the Jewish people's existence, and this is commentated on by like medieval Catholic theologians and saints, is preparing the way for the end times in which all the living Jewish people that are remaining at the end times will accept Christ in their heart, become Catholic, and thus be saved, right? And so their continued existence as a people is sort of a part of the divine plan for them eventually to embrace Christ and be grafted back onto the olive tree of salvation.
That's interesting then. So you are therefore, by that definition, in support of a state of Israel and the Jewish people because they play a part in that end times role.
Oh, so I might have missed that second question. I apologize. I was more unpacking the first.
It's okay.
So of course, I'm not for the persecution of any people. So if you would say, are you for the existence of a kind of people? It kind of depends on what you mean. If we mean like ethnicities or races, I'm for the existence of all people, of course, because all people are made in the image and likeness of God. If you would say, am I for the existence of Judaism as a religion? No, I am not. I want all, because I love all people and because I love Jewish people, I want them to accept Jesus Christ into their heart and be saved and thus become Catholic. And I know some people see that as erasing the Jewish people, but, people are made in the image of God and they're made for God. And if our end is for God, then it means our end is to become Catholic. And thus the end of the Jewish people is to accept Christ into their heart, become our brothers and sisters in Christ, and be incorporated in the church. And so for that very reason, I also don't, I guess when I would say I don't support the existence of Israel, I'm not wishing for, any harm for the people there or anything like that, but there's not this divine purpose of Israel, right? So, I don't think anyone should be forcefully removed from any land they're living on or anything like that. But to say I support the state would not be accurate, I would say. I think it would more be that I want everyone to be treated with respect and dignity, and I want everyone to be Catholic. That would be my official position.
Understood. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you for the answers.
Dude, of course, man. Day. It was great talking with you. You have a great day, okay?
I'll see ya. Later, brother.
Thank you so much.
Dude, that was awesome.
It was nice to get somebody up here. Yeah, it was nice to get somebody up here that was actually nice.
Yeah, dude. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, I don't want to be nasty to anyone that disagrees. It's just like when people come up and they have an agenda, it's like, okay, man, we gotta be kind. We gotta maintain that respect.
Absolutely. All right, next person I will bring up. Guys, I know for all the people that are watching right now, I know there's a lot of people that want to come up. If I happen to bring somebody else before you, I promise I'll do my best to get to you. Don't take it personally. I'm trying to give everybody a chance here. There's just a lot of people, so we can only do one at a time. Next person I'm going to bring up is Yasuka. Actually, Yasuka was in my event yesterday, so jump on up. What's up, man?
Oh, heck
Good
yeah.
to see you again.
Hello.
How's it going?
How's the event been going so far for you from your perspective, Pine?
Dude, I mean, honestly, the written questions have been really nice. And Costco Hot Dog was awesome. Those first two guys were not so nice, to be honest. And here's the thing. I'm not offended by them disagreeing or anything like that. It's like, but we should have respect for each other as people. You know what I mean? Like, we should be willing to have a respectful dialogue. So I think it's going better now.
All right, that's fair. I've been trying to find like a major point of contention and disagreement that I have with you in order to like grill you or purity test you, purity spiral you. There's nothing that's come up so far that I'm like super serious about. Obviously, I'm not a Catholic, but I don't want to go like super hard into like Catholic apologism versus like Dutch Reformed or Eastern Orthodox or whatever. So imagine this is going to be much shorter call because there's not really as much for me to press you on.
That's totally fine.
So I'm saying this in the most loving way possible. I'm actually not going to say it. Never mind.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, because it's just like, if this was a more private situation, I might say certain things. But it's like, why would I give, credence to people that hate both of us? So I'm just not going to say certain things.
No, that's fair.
That would be in like a loving way, but when it's in front of certain people, it becomes not loving. So with that being said, hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. That means a lot to me.
Yep. Have a good one.
Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate you, man.
Heck yeah.
All right, next person that's gonna come up is let's see. All right, we're gonna go Kino and then Russ and then Keith. And yeah, we'll bring Kino up. Come on up, Kino. How's it going, man? Good to see you again.
Yo, yeah, I got some questions. Yeah, my first question is, why do you think gay people love the Jesuits so much?
Why do I think that when you say that, maybe it's kind of a humorous question. Do you mean people like outside the church that
Catholics? Why do you think they like love the Jesuits?
Well, the Jesuit order in really sort of the past, like 60 years, roughly, a little bit before then, had kind of been subverted by some very liberal figures. And I think the reason why is because, you see this kind of with academia in general. Academia has become more liberal over the last 60 years, and Jesuits were highly involved in academia. And so I think that there were some particular individuals that wanted to get involved because they knew that they would have a lot of power over both minds and souls being involved in the Jesuit order. And I think, too, it's also a cultural effect of, the people becoming priests now or even becoming Jesuits now. There's no like cultural impetus to want to become a priest. And so anyone becoming a priest is going to be like an Orthodox Catholic, right? But at that time, you probably had some Italian family, Nona is talking to the, young son in the family. And she's like, oh, it'd be so nice if you became a priest and stuff like that. And then he's not really down with Catholic teaching, but he's been kind of put in this order because of kind of cultural pressure, right? And I think it led to sort of, on the part of some of those figures, a lot of resentment towards Catholic teaching as a result of kind of being expected to enter the priesthood.
Okay, so yeah, I guess my second question, flowing from that, since you have problems with this like liberalizing or whatever, what do you think of the bishops in Germany?
Oh, terrible.
Right now, like,
yeah. Oh gosh, I try not to think about them, right? They're completely terrible. I think we've reached a point where I would like to see them be formally disciplined. I know that both Pope Francis and I think Pope Leo to a certain extent have been trying to essentially avoid a schism, because the problem is if they just maybe excommunicated the whole German bishops conference, or at least most of the members that are doing this kind of crazy liberal stuff, they would take their parishes, they take their churches with them. I think what they're trying to do right now is kind of like work the best with a bad situation. But that being said, I think we just got to cut them loose. I think they've made it clear this is the path they're headed down. And unless there's some real disciplinary action, they're going to continue to drag on these sort of scandalous actions that are an affront against God and his teaching.
So is your issue only that they are like sort of liberal, or do you have problems with them being like more independent from the church? Or like, do you think the Pope should have more oversight?
So actually, it's kind of funny. To be a more independent bishop would ironically still fall in the category of liberalism, because it's not that the Bishop of Rome, the Holy Father, has to be an autocrat or a dictator. That's not what the First Vatican Council teaches. That's not what the church teaches. But, you know, as his role of being the shepherd of all souls, right? He has to be in this position where he cares about the best and health of Christ's church. So when he doesn't need to be involved with like a diocese or a bishop or what have you, he doesn't have to be. Everything's running effectively and smooth. You know, he doesn't have to kind of impose his will in that diocese. But when something is going wrong, he does have to intervene. And so I think in that way, if there's any bishop that's trying to break with the eternal teaching of our Lord and, you know, teach false and erroneous doctrines or what have you, the Pope definitely does need to get involved. But if everything's going, you know, swimmingly and great, then I think everything can, you know, be fine, and he doesn't have to necessarily like step in or be in this position where he's micromanaging everything.
Okay, so this is my last question. What do you think of the China-Vatican Accords that sort of like limit the Pope's oversight of the Chinese like priests and give China almost some oversight over Catholicism in the region? That's
a great question. It's tough. It's a very difficult position. I think often that, you know, when the Pope acts in a certain way, he's not just acting for himself, but he's acting for billions of Catholics worldwide, right? You know, I'm thinking in giving that or in thinking of this sort of predicament that he's in, I'm reminded of, I believe it was in 2008, the Regensburg address by Pope Benedict, where he talked about kind of the violence in Islam. And because he talked about the violence in Islam, there were multiple priests and Catholic lay people that were then killed in Muslim countries. And I think a similar dilemma kind of exists in China, where the church is trying to figure out the best way to navigate a very difficult situation with the church in China. You know, if the Holy Father or the Vatican started to be more aggressive, it could risk there being far more restrictions, far more persecution or what have you. But they want to give sort of a position where the church has the most freedom possible in such a bad and dictatorial position that I think they're just trying the best they can. I would have to study the Accords more specifically and maybe give like a line by line kind of analysis of what I think of each of the kind of entailing of what the Accord calls for. But I really would say that it's just trying to make the best of a bad situation and navigate so that the church is no longer persecuted.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Those were great questions.
Awesome. Yeah, Kino's a great guy.
He's a great dude.
One of my good friends. All right, let's see. All right, next person I promised I would bring up was Russ. Miami, I know you want to come up. I'm going to bring you up after Keith. So it's going to go Russ, Keith, and then Miami. All right, so Russ, come on up. I invited you up, man.
Hey, how you doing, Connor?
I'm doing pretty good, Russ. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I mean, before I like ask a question, I just want to say, I don't know if you hear this a lot. Like you've inspired a lot of like young people to get into Catholicism and really think about theology, and I just want to thank you for that.
It's everything. It's the whole reason I do what I do, man. And
yeah, and we really do appreciate it.
Thank you. That really means a lot to me. You have no idea.
Yep. And so I have two questions. After the Jubilee video, after it was done filming and after it was done being posted, what was the initial reaction that you had when you saw the backlash online?
Before it affected my job, I didn't really care. Because I think that in some ways, in order to speak the truth, we have to take risks, right? And that's not something I would recommend for most people. I mean, it goes without saying. I don't know if I've said it elsewhere. Don't get yourself canceled. It's not fun. It does create a lot of difficulty in your life or what have you. And I wouldn't wish that on even my worst enemy. But I love God too much to not talk about him. And, even though the life that I've chosen might be a little bit more difficult, it's one that I've chosen because I feel like every human being needs to know just how much he loves them. And so initially when everything went down, I was a little nervous, but I was just kind of like, people are getting mad or whatever. And then, when it started to affect more those attributes of my personal life, I was crushed. I was very, very, very upset. I just felt like my world was falling apart. And I think looking back on it, I become a stronger person as a result of going through all of that. Believe it or not, my life has been, ironically, never better. I've met great people, great friends, had wonderful discussions with people that I would have never otherwise met. And, it's that old saying that when life closes a door, God opens a window. And I feel like a window has been open and I've just been taking a big old breath of fresh air. There's still difficulties sometimes, there's still tough days, but I really do think that everything worked out the way it needed to. And I think in some ways it was, God kind of saying, hey, I'm calling you for something different. And I'm just living life one day at a time now. I'm grateful to be alive, man.
Wow, okay. I'm sorry, my mind went for a second. I almost forgot my second question.
Oh, that's okay.
And
Take your time.
Second question is, what's your thoughts on the recent comments made by the Trump administration on Catholics and the Pope?
Oh man, dude, that is unbelievable. Trump. I say this with no hyperbole. Trump has betrayed every single reason I ever supported him. And I view him as sort of this figure that is as bad as a Democrat, if not worse. We all voted in Trump originally because we thought that he was going to give us the ability to finally share our voice in politics. And I remember this from a wonderful author, Kevin, I think his last name is Valier, of Oxford Press, where he's writing in his book, Not of This World, in the preface, and he's saying how Trump kind of acted as a Constantinian figure, right? He acted as a Constantinian figure for an actual conservative, actual right-wing reaction within politics. And even though he himself, he had infidelities in his marriage, thrice divorced, all these kinds of problems, he was at least giving us the leverage to be able to talk about politics in a way we had never discussed it before. And for that, I really was at the time grateful for the work that he was doing. Now he is just a bitter, sad old man who is trying to get revenge on anyone who is his perceived enemy. And I think that his administration has become a complete joke. I think that he is just, it's like Don Quixote fighting windmills, right? It's like first one day it's Catholics, then it's Alex Jones, then it's people who used to support him but now have seen the writing on the wall. And it would be best for him to, honestly, if he gets impeached during after this midterm election cycle, I can't say I'm going to be sad, because I think he kind of deserves that. I think he has just been a terrible, terrible, terrible president, and his attack on Catholics has cemented to me that I'm fully opposed to his administration.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it much better. I agree with basically everything you said. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to say thank you for the time that you gave me, and same with 9K. I appreciate you.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
And another thing I want to add, there's a lot of people that don't really have like media presence that agree with you, like especially young people. Like a few years ago when I was going to high school, like there was a lot of people that talked about the Jubilee video that you were in, and a lot of people did support you. And yeah, I just want to say thank you again for having such a positive influence over young people's lives, and we appreciate the work you do.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you guys. I would be nothing without you.
Yep, no problem. Have a good night.
It was
Heck
good to
yeah.
see you again, Russ.
Yep, see you later, 9K.
Bye,
Take care,
Russ.
All right, awesome.
That was awesome, man.
All right, yeah, Russ is a really nice guy. Actually, I've had a few talks with him before. All right, Keith. We'll bring Keith up because Keith's been asking to come up. What's up, Keith? Welcome.
Hey, bro.
Hey, you have a question?
Yeah, Pine Sap. So I have a very serious question, and you're gonna have to think about it. So this is gonna tell me how you are as a person. Okay, so think about it.
You got it.
If you were given the chance, would you date Alyssa Liu? Think about it.
Alyssa Liu.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that is kind of man. You weren't kidding about that being a thinker. Honestly, that's kind of tough, man.
I know. I thought about it for weeks. You know.
I can say this with zero hesitation. At least a first date, I would bite. That would be pretty nice. She is kind of a little bad. So I gotta admit, I gotta call a spade a spade. She is a little bad. I think a first date. Would I want to marry her? I don't know about that, but a first date, definitely.
So what's your type in woman then?
Oh man, that's a tough question. Gosh, for me, it's kind of like I think I view a relationship kind of like a mosaic. And so it's not like one thing. It's kind of all the way it comes together. I think you probably know what I'm talking about, where if you've ever, been in a relationship before, it's kind of like, it's like playing music, right? There has to be kind of a harmony. You have to be on the same wavelength. And I think for me, as much as I find no difficulty in finding a lot of women very, beautiful in terms of a physical standpoint, but I think on that kind of emotional scale or that kind of emotional resonance, I'm very French. So it's like, unless I have that kind of, emotional concord, I just don't feel like anything's there. But if I had to kind of narrow it down, honestly, like someone said in my chat, but like alt girls or goth girls always kind of have my heart. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, and I have a question from the community. How much sap cock did she need to become Catholic?
Dude, that's crazy.
It's from Geo, by the way.
Dude, I don't know, man. Listen, all I'll say is it's good to wait till marriage. But when we get married, hey, we're gonna be making some music. That's all I'm gonna say.
We?
Well, not you and me. Whoa. Hold up.
All right, thank you, man.
Absolutely, man. Hey,
Good
have a
luck.
great day, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Keith. Thank you. All right, next up we'll do Moon.
Dude, every once in a while, Freak Sap comes out. I had to tone that down.
No, totally. Hey, Moon, what's up?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for coming to the server. We really appreciate it. It's been a great AMA so far.
Heck yeah, I'm happy to be here, honestly. These questions have been great and stuff like that. So I think we're having a great discussion.
Awesome. I was going to ask about H-1B visas, but I want to change quickly because you're a Catholic, and I believe Charlie Kirk was a Catholic. So I just wanted to ask you like a two-part, since there's a lot of things going on as far as like bloggers and a lot of the fighting and stuff like that. What was your opinions on Charlie Kirk and his conversions to Catholicism and a lot of the disputes about that?
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever had a confirmation. I know he never was officially confirmed as a Catholic or went through that confirmation process. It sounded like he was going to talk to Bishop Barron, ironically, like that next week before he died, about Catholicism. So it sounded like he was headed that way, and he expressed like a further devotion to the Virgin Mary. But sadly, I don't believe he ever formally converted. In the depth of my heart, honestly, I really do hope that he did accept Catholic teaching, maybe in those final moments of his life, known to God alone. And I really do pray that he did, because it would be beautiful to just see one more person in heaven.
Yeah. And then the second part is, how do you feel about a lot of the discourse with all of the bloggers like Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, about his death, and then the behaviors of Erica Kirk?
That is a great question, actually. I was very supportive of Erica initially because I thought that, you know, she was very torn up over the loss of her husband. She seemed initially to be very sincere with her emotions and stuff like that. I was like, man, this poor girl, she just lost her husband. Like, that's terrible. Subsequently, though, and seeing her behavior and like the leaked Zoom calls and stuff like that, I think she's completely disingenuous. I really do not like her. I think she's completely exploited Charlie's death, this death of someone she was literally married to, in order to start her own media career and have her own accolades. And I think she needs to depart from public life. I think she has brought an immense amount of scandal in everything that she's done. You know, Candace has her own problems with, you know, I'm talking to Charlie through Sumerian technology and he came to me in a dream and stuff like that. I think that's just completely off the wall and made up. But Erica's subsequent reaction to Charlie's death, I think, has been very disgusting. And I don't think it's the behavior of someone who truly loved and cared about their husband. And I've done a complete, honestly, 180 on my opinion of her.
Thank you. I will be back later with an H-1B visa question. Thank
Heck
you,
yeah.
okay.
My mic was off. Thank you so much, Moon. I appreciate you. All right. F-bomb. I promised F-bomb I would bring him up. So come on up, F-bomb.
Yo, what's
How's it
up? How we
going?
doing?
Pretty good.
How's
How
it
are you
going?
doing, man?
I'm good. I don't know who you are, anything about you. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
That's all right.
So, but I am curious to know. Do you believe in satellites?
Like satellites, like the thing we put up in space.
Yeah. Like the big metal things we put up in space. Supposedly they have batteries that, you know, like help them relay information to and from the Earth and stuff like that.
I would say I believe in those. Yeah.
Okay. So supposedly there's 30,000 at current, 30,957 of them at different intervals around the planet as it stands. That being said, how would you feel about like there not being a direct path off the planet at some point and ruining our capabilities of space travel?
Oh, that's a pretty good question. I think that'd be tragic. I mean, I there is something to be gained from exploring the stars and analyzing our universe more and even our galaxy. And I think it would be terrible if we had such a situation with like pollution around sort of the orbit of our the orbit of our planet, that we weren't able to actually, you know, send a rocket off into space or anything like that. That'd be completely terrible. And so what I would say is that I'd be pretty sad about that. You know, I think that space travel is pretty cool. I think it offers a lot of capabilities for kind of propelling maybe things like medical technology or just quality of life stuff forward. And I would love to see us engage in more space travel as time goes on.
So, okay, bringing it in, I've gained from listening to you that you're a very religious person. So I'll kind of bring religion into this. How does Christianity, like, you know, rationalize space travel?
That's a great question, actually. Oh, were you going to say more? I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just going to expand on it because, like, from my understanding, my limited understanding, there's no mention of, you know, going to other planets or, you know, even being a multi-planeted species created in the image of God and stuff like that. From my understanding, Christianity as a whole is supposed to be like take care of the planet because we're supposed to be the cultivators of the earth and stuff like that while we wait for God to come back.
Honestly, I mean, you got a ton of that right. So I think there's a difference between us exploring the beautiful universe that God made us and sort of engaging in what I would call a kind of space fetishism, where we think we're going to find our salvation in the stars, right? That kind of goes back to things, ironically, like transhumanism or the idea that technology can explain everything. It's kind of an overextension of what I would call scientism, not the idea that science is great and can help us develop like technology that can save lives or what have you, or improve the quality of life. But the idea that the sort of empirical and utilitarian nature of science is something to be worshipped onto itself. I think that sort of this space fetishism is like an extended form of that. And as a result, when you see people kind of hyping up space as a means to abandon Earth, I would agree that Catholicism would condemn such an idea, right? The church would condemn such an idea. Well, I mean, Jesus would condemn such an idea. But as long as we are good stewards of the Earth, and as long as all of that is maintained and we are appreciative of what God has already given us, I don't see any harm in us maybe exploring Mars or expanding our kind of reach beyond our known galaxy in order to only further appreciate the beauty of creation amongst the stars.
Gotcha. Okay. Two more small questions. Since
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
here.
totally fine.
Do you think that in Revelations, given the timeline of the end of the Earth and stuff like that, there would have to be a small deviation in the event that we were a multiplanetary species by then?
Not at all, because even though, heaven will meet Earth during Revelation, everything will be changed, right? The entire universe will be changed. So it's not like a localized event. It's just that heaven meeting Earth refers to the idea that, Earth is kind of our epicenter, right? That's where we started. That's the planet that God gave us and stuff like that. And so, it's referring to kind of our prime home or place. But during the second coming of our Lord, the entire universe will be affected. Basically, the veil that separates this reality versus the next life will be broken down. And of course, the righteous will be judged righteous and the wicked will be judged wicked.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense. Last question, then I'll dip. Do you think Jesus would have put pineapples on pizza?
Wow, that's a good question. Man, I think our Lord, in his sense of humor, one of my favorite moments from the Bible is I believe it's when they're walking to Emmaus or they're walking down the road after our Lord's resurrection, and the apostles don't recognize him for a moment, right? And they're talking about, oh, Jesus was like this great man and stuff like that. And Jesus, knowing he's Jesus, is like kind of trolling them. And he's like, oh, really? Like, well, what did he do? Well, what's going on here and stuff like that. I think sort of it's a similar thing maybe with pineapple on pizza. Pineapple on pizza, in my opinion, is a pretty good flavor. And so I think our Lord appreciates good flavor. But, of course, if our Lord didn't like pineapple on pizza, I would not like pineapple on pizza.
All right, cool. All right.
Heck yeah.
All right, thanks so much, F-Bomb. I appreciate you.
He was the GOAT, man.
Right,
that was awesome.
Person, yeah. No, he's a really nice guy, actually. I talk to him every time I'm in the voice chat down below. All right, I'll read out a few text chat questions from a gentleman named DK. How do you defend the Mariology? I think it's Mariology. That's what it says. How do you defend the Mariology?
Well, Mariology constitutes a large section of theology, so I'm not sure what specifically within Mariology he would say. Whether it's the title of Mary being like the mother of God, or the Immaculate Conception, the idea that she was, conceived without sin. I'm not really sure what he might be referring to there. I mean, what we know is that, Mary being the mother of our Savior, she is a type of the Ark of the Covenant, right? And the Ark of the Covenant had no stain in it. And so thus our mother, Mary, would have no stain as well. And so that's why our mother Mary is preserved immaculate, because, the sort of holding and bearing of God, right? Emmanuel would have to be from an immaculate source, thus our mother, right? I apologize. I maybe can't answer the question better. It's not on the part of the person who asked it, but it's a little vague in terms of what he's referring to Mariology, because that's like saying, like, what do you think of astronomy, right? Or how do you defend astronomy? It's like, well, there's a lot of different disciplines within that.
I got you. Yeah, DK, if you want to, I don't know if you're still in the audience, if you want to type up like a more specific question related to that, I'll be happy to read it in a bit. That's fine. Okay, next question is this person, he says he has a voice chat question. Shabat man, I'll bring you up. I invited you. How's it going, man?
Oh, did
Can you
he
hear me?
mute? Yes, sir, I can hear you.
I'm right now I can't. My speaker isn't on. Can I rejoin and you invite me again?
Yeah, that's fine. Do you just want me to move you down and then invite you back up, like right? Oh, there he goes.
Oh.
Wait, let me see if I can find him in the audience again. See if I can. bring
I
that
see
back.
him in the audience right now with his hand raised.
I got him. Yeah, there he goes. Is your you got your audio working? Is it working?
Oh.
Okay. My speaker isn't working, so I'm just gonna ask the question and then I'll leave and rejoin to hear the response. I was thinking, what are you thinking of the Iran war stuff? It seems to be like kind of like a mistake to do that, But I don't know. What do you think of the Iran stuff? That's my question.
I actually completely agree with I don't know if Shabbat Man can hear me, but I'd completely agree with this comment. It's completely asinine. There's no reason for us to be over in Iran. I know Iran doesn't like us. They call us the Great Satan or what have you. I'm not going to pretend like they're our greatest ally or whatever. But that being said, I don't think that we have any fight against the Iranian people or even the Iranian government for that matter, right? Even though they're not our ally, there's no reason we should be involved over there. It's clearly an attempt for Trump to further fight Israel's enemies and crush their enemies in order that they can create this greater project of Israel and restore what they see as being the like Davidic kingdom, right? And because of that, he's clearly fighting this war on behalf of their government in order to effect that mission. And I think really the end game is to usher in the Antichrist, who they will worship as the Messiah. So there's no reason for us to be involved over there, right? It's completely a costly war. It's costing the American people. It's killing innocent lives. And it just shows that this administration is not focused on putting America first, Christ first, or really the betterment of anyone that it's been negatively affecting.
Amazing. Awesome. Next person up is Hamburglar. He says he has a question. Come on up. Hamburglar, that's a good name. Hamburglar, if you're in the audience, I've invited you up to speak. I don't know if he's AFK right now, though.
Oh. Yeah, I don't see anyone coming in.
Yeah, that's fine. Hamburglar, I am going to invite somebody else up, but I will leave the invite there. So if you manage to come back and somebody else is Oh, he actually typed his question out in text chat. Okay, that's fine. I'll just read it out then. As a Catholic, where do you derive Petrine doctrine, specifically the perpetual succession of the Bishop of Rome from the biblical text? Is it biblical at all?
That's a great question. So, Christ in the New Testament establishes an order of bishops to be passed down, right? He establishes this apostolic succession in order that his church could have forever perpetuity, right? That this new and everlasting covenant that he was establishing could truly be new and everlasting. And so because of that, when he breathes upon the apostles and he says, whoever sins you loosen will be loosened in heaven, and whoever sins you bind will be bound in heaven. It was this ministry he was affecting so that it could be carried down throughout the ages, right? And these elders, right, these bishops that he was appointing were to be successors of the apostles in order that his word could be carried down throughout the ages, right? Christ promised to remain amongst them to the end of time. And because he promised to remain amongst them to the end of time, when he says in Matthew 16:18, you are Peter, upon this rock I will build my church. Well, I always like to say it, a rock doesn't roll, right? So because a rock doesn't roll, it would only have to be the case that if the church itself, the church that's to last forever, as Christ says later, is to last, in perpetuity, he has to establish this ministry that can be carried down throughout the ages, right? And from those biblical texts, I can't, conjure up all verses right off the top of my head right now, but from those biblical texts that we get witness from, and even the early church fathers that give further witness to those texts, like St. Jerome saying that Peter was appointed over the apostles as sort of the man to remove the occasion of schism, right? The idea that when there is this, occasion where some of the successors of the apostles are debating amongst each other, like they did in the Council of Jerusalem, Peter is to step in as sort of the Corpheus, as some of the fathers call him, the choir master of the apostles, the choir of the apostles, in order that they may effect the mission of Christ. Well, if Peter no longer had his sort of Petrine ministry to carry down that mission throughout the ages, then that choir master would be removed, and we would not all be singing the harmonic truth of Jesus Christ.
Awesome. All right. And then Havertz had a question. I will invite Havertz up to speak. I know he was requesting to speak. Havertz, I sent you an invite. Are you still there?
Oh, I don't see him coming up.
Yeah, I saw he typed his question out, but I also saw that he was requesting to speak, so I figured I'd just invite him. But okay, I'll just read out his question. Oh, he said 1 second. Okay.
Oh,
all right.
gotcha.
So then while we're waiting for him, because I think he just needs a minute, I'll read out a question from Loom. Have you ever read works of Enlightenment or Romantic era theological philosophers like Soren? I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Kierkegaard?
Kierkegaard? Yes. And what are your thoughts on them? Do you believe theologically focused philosophy has a place in the Catholic environment?
That last part, did he say theology focused philosophy?
Yeah, so he said, do you believe theologically focused philosophy has a place in the Catholic environment?
That's all Catholic philosophy, baby. We got it, right? So anywhere from Blessed Duns Scotus to St. Thomas Aquinas to, I'm trying to think of our other prominent philosophers like St. Albert the Great, it's all Catholic. So philosophy and theology are are really sort of one and the same. They're not separate questions, but rather they encompass the same domain of life, right? And so we see a harmony between them because faith and reason are harmonious in that way. In terms of Soren Kierkegaard, I have been delighted to read some quotes from him and some excerpts, never any substantive text of his, but what I have read is excellent. And I did see a great article written by, I can't remember who, but I remember, I think Father Louis Boyer or another one of these sort of modern 20th century Catholic theologians was commenting on Kierkegaard specifically within a Catholic context. And he had a very Catholic way of thinking, despite being, I believe it was Lutheran because of the Danish state church. And so he kind of understood the need for hierarchy. He understood the need for like a formal, visible church, not just this sort of invisible church that's very popular amongst Protestantism. I mean, I know they have like somewhat of a visible church structure, but they're more into the idea of, the believer just merely assenting makes him believe, sort of belong to the church. Whereas there's sort of a downplaying of the visibility of the church within Catholic theology, right? Or within, oh my goodness, Protestant theology, not Catholic theology, my goodness. So that article was great on Kierkegaard, and it made me want to get more into reading him. But I think he's an excellent philosopher, and the stuff that I've seen on existentialism from him has been wonderful.
Awesome. Great. Okay. From Falcon, ask him, what was on your heart to say to Pope Francis before he left us?
What was on my heart to say to Pope Francis before he left us?
Yes.
Oh man, I'm going to try to keep my composure. I wanted to tell him that I was sorry. I had entered the church thinking that he was this like liberal destroyer. I thought he was this like evil man and, he was tearing apart Catholic tradition or what have you. And I didn't realize what a kind, congenial, truly faithful believer he was. And when I had that epiphany about him, a couple years before he passed away and a year into my journey being Catholic, I just had a lot of regret. I had a lot of regret because I'd spent so much time attacking him and seeing him in this negative way. I didn't realize he was truly this this shepherd, this man whose heart was just on fire for the love of Christ and his neighbor. And I remember I visited Rome, and there was probably no way I was going to see the Holy Father or what have you. But on my visit to Rome, I always thought to myself when I was there, if I just had a moment to just tell him, Holy Father, I'm so sorry, and I want you to know that I love you, right? I love you with all my heart, and you have inspired me to understand that Christ is the greatest friend that I could ever ask for, that, he loves me no matter what, and he loves all of us no matter what. And you have helped me so much along my journey into his arms, really. That's what I would have told him. And I would have let him know what a spiritual father he was to me. And I ask for his intercession every single day.
Amazing, very thoughtful. That is awesome. Okay,
also, I have some super chats coming in on my end, but I think what I'll do is I'll read them after we're done doing the AMA. Just wanted to let the people listening to my stream know that.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Let's see here. Falcon says thank you for answering this question.
Absolutely.
Okay. Jay, I'm gonna try to pronounce this name in your question. Actually, Havertz, are you ready to come up? If I invite you up, are you ready? Or do you need another minute? There you go. Hey, what's up, man? You're muted for some reason. That's interesting. Let me just fix that for you real quick. All right. How's it going, Havertz?
Hello. You hear me?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, Pine-Sab, could you answer this argument I'm going to send in the side chat? Okay.
Is it the image that was attached to your question?
Well, no, not that one. I'm going to change it up to this one. Hold up. It's in AMN questions. It's the logical problem of the incarnation.
All right, Pine-Sab, if you can't see it, I'll send you a link to it in your DMs.
Yeah, just send it.
Yeah, I might need to see it in the DMs. Hopefully, I have the skill to answer it. I don't want to pretend I'm like the greatest theologian in the entire world or what have you. But let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I sent it.
I will. All right, I sent you a. All right, and I'll just read it out right here. I also sent you a screenshot. P1. All right, P1 for every object X. Okay, so it looks like it's proper. Okay.
Oh, it seems to be. Sorry, you can totally read it out.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. For every object X, if X possesses the divine nature, then X is. I might mispronounce.
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent. Okay.
Or omnipotent. That's another way to pronounce it. Yeah, omnipotent.
I always get confused between the two.
Yeah, I think you can say it either way, but omnipotent kind of flows a little bit better.
Awesome. All right, P2. For every object X, if X possesses the human nature, then X is not omnipotent. P3. If there exists an object X such that X itself possesses both the divine nature and the human nature. Conclusion. Therefore, there exists an object X such that X itself is both omnipotent and not omnipotent.
So, if I'm understanding it correctly, I just want to reread it. Just make sure for every object X. Such that X itself possesses both divine nature and the human nature. Therefore, there exists an object X that such that X itself is both omnipotent and not. So that's very interesting. So I know that there have been men much smarter than myself who have written extensively on Christ's natures and Christ's wills in regards to sort of his knowledge. And he actually, does have, divine knowledge and human knowledge as well, belonging to his two wills, being fully man and fully God. What I would say off the top of my head, and maybe I'm getting something wrong and someone much smarter than me can correct me, but, during his earthly ministry, there were moments where he humbled himself in such a way that he had the human knowledge, right, of his, human nature, right? But being fully God as well, he never lost the ability to be omnipotent. So, belonging to sort of that human ministry, he willingly sort of put himself in a position where at times he was able to fully express that human nature, even in all its limitation, but it didn't mean that he lost his divine nature. Just maybe that aspect of his omnipotence or like knowing everything all at once might have not been used. But I know that I read an article a long time that went into it much more extensively than I have here. This is just me shooting from the hip the best I can.
Yeah, in regards to like the response, I mean, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but you're referring to like kenosis, right? When you said the humbling, so like the self-emptying of Christ. So the entire point of the argument is just to showcase that there's like going to be like a logical contradiction with that. That there's an illogical contradiction with Christ being both omnipotent, not omnipotent, P and not P. Like if you hold to like dialetheism, I think you can avoid this. But I'm assuming that like per your tradition, you're not going to hold to something like that, right?
Christology is not my strong suit, so I would have to refer to somebody who's much more well-versed. What I would like to do, my brother, is I would like to take that question and do more research on it. And hopefully next episode, if you want to DM me or add me as a friend and DM me that question again, I want to sit down and go over it a lot more to deepen my own understanding of Christology. Because I will be honest, my main area of apologetics is mostly ecclesiology and church history. So Christology is kind of one of my weaker spots. But I would love to deepen my research on that question.
I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care.
Take care, brother.
Thank you, Havert. I appreciate you.
No, that's a good
all right,
question.
next
And
up-
I want to go back and answer it at a future date. Like I said, Christology is like just not my strong suit.
Yeah, that's fine. I think people like appreciate more when you say that it's just not your strong suit instead of just like trying to answer. I think people tend to appreciate that more. I've noticed that with a lot. It happened like last night. I think our guest last night got pretty mad because a few of our users just wouldn't say that they didn't know the answer to a question.
That's so fair.
All right. Baron. Okay, Baron. I'm gonna let Baron up. What's up, Baron? How's it going, man?
Hey, going good. Hey, thanks for that mock election, by the way.
Yeah,
You did
no
pretty
problem.
you did pretty good. Totally
I appreciate
unbiased
that.
journalist.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. All right.
But hey, Pine Sap, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, man. How's it going with you?
Yeah, pretty good. You and I actually have a mutual friend. His name's Kai. You know this guy?
Oh yeah, Kai Clips.
Yeah. I actually was the one who hosted his event here when we had him, and we told him live that we were actually having you sometime soon. He was like, "Oh, hey, that guy's cool," and yeah, so that's really cool to not have you here. So
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Hey, whatever gets the conservative voices, amplified. That's my whole goal here.
Heck yeah.
But and yeah. So first, how long you been streaming so far? I got here recently.
Oh gosh. I think as of now for this episode, an hour and 34 minutes.
Okay, an hour and 34 minutes. That'll help me find this when I go and rewatch the stream or something.
Oh heck yeah.
My questions are this. I think you'll like these questions from what I know about you so far. So, do you agree that we are in a place in America where Christianity must either rule or Christians will inevitably end up being ruled by those who hate it? Because I believe there's a power vacuum right now that will be filled by Islam if Christianity doesn't take it. I think someone you may know, Andrew Wilson, he actually made a similar argument recently about it when he was on trigonometry.
I would completely agree.
That's my first question.
I would completely agree with that assessment. To be fair, I don't know how much we can say in the politics AMA. I'm fine with saying this on my channel, but I don't think it's Islam taking up the you know,
I know
negative
what you're thinking.
Christian power. Yeah, I think it's a certain different Middle Eastern religion. And I think it is as such that they know that Catholic faith in this country is Bishop Williamson said this a long time ago, where he said, as Catholic faith increases, their power goes down. And because Catholic faith is increasing, their power is going down. And that they know that their time in terms of ruling this country is kind of going up. And so at that point, what's happening is they're trying their darndest to prevent, I think, an honest Christian reaction. I think what is occurring is they're going to kind of up the persecution. They're going to up sort of the really, I guess you could say, opposition to Christianity any way they can, either from a right-wing perspective or a left-wing perspective. I think, honestly, what we've been seeing more of recently has not even been really a left-wing perspective. It's been more of a right-wing one. And you see this with, like the Bronze Age pervert types, right? They're using like Nietzsche to try and attack Christianity, or like vitalism. You're seeing this with even sort of some sects of Christianity that are perfectly fine with them ruling, right? Like Doug Wilson comes to mind immediately, who wants to ban like public processions of the Eucharist or Marian processions. Right. And so as time goes on, I completely agree with you, my brother. We are in this fight and we need to seize power, because if we don't, we're going to be ruled by people who hate us emphatically.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, people need to stop pretending that this country wasn't founded by Christians, or at the very least, I'll, give Christian values, at least, in Christian principles, and I mean, do you agree with that? I do.
I would completely agree. Where, even though the founding of this country maybe wasn't perfect, we are a manifestation of the European cultural project. And because of that, deeply embedded in our really sort of cultural DNA is Christianity. And so when we say that, this country was founded by Christians, a lot of people like to retort, oh, but the Freemasons, oh, but this. There were problems during the founding. But again, I look at the people, I look at the stock and what this country represents. And the stock, the DNA, the composition of who we are is fundamentally a Christian people. And because of that, we need to rule as a Christian nation. Otherwise, we're contradicting what this nation was set up to be.
Yeah, and also it kind of goes in hand with like how now we're more of a direct democracy, and that's not at all what the founders envisioned for us whatsoever. They envisioned a republic, because they saw that a big problem with direct democracy is that the Constitution. I think actually Kai made this argument towards Mehdi Hassan that the Constitution could be eroded completely legally using the system.
Absolutely.
And degraded a little over time, just a little inch every year, a little inch more every law that's passed. But great. We agree on that. My second question is how should young conservatives and Christians transform the spaces and institutions around us to grow conservative influence, empower conservative voices, and gain back ground that was taken from us by previous generations, or that are being taken from us right now?
That is a phenomenal question.
It's everyone for himself out here. It's like we're in a battle. Actually, we have to take some control here, right?
We do. And I think for that reason, what we have to do is a combination of things. We have to hide our power level, meaning we have to be, as our Lord really tells us, as cunning as the serpent, but as innocent as the dove, right? This idea where we maintain our innocence, but we are subversive in a good way, right? Play nice with people, there's no need to make a stink. There's no need to, put your name or your face out there, but infiltrate these institutions, gain the leverages of power, and then hire on people who really are going to be just like us and believe the same things as us, right? And so we can't be scared of academia. We can't be scared of these institutions. We have to integrate ourselves within them, because too many conservatives and even Christians in the past have kind of said, well, it's all Babylon, right? This school is Babylon, academia is Babylon. I'm just going to bow out. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to, find any way to sort of, be more integrated and find a way to give us leverage in these institutions. I'm just going to bow out because it's too hard. That's the wrong approach, right? The right approach is instead to gain a position in those institutions through hard work and labor and knowing when and where to have certain conversations, in order so that not only can you affect it through your own influence, but you can bring on other people who think and act just like us. So if we're able to have the courage and the conviction to, again, pursue academia, pursue these higher posts within society, even if it's like, things like intelligence, right? Like intelligence agencies or government or local government, that's going to make the far greater change than if we just choose to kind of take almost a retreatist approach and we go live in our compound out in the woods so that government drones can soar over us and burn them down.
Yeah, honestly, in some ways, subversion is a good thing when it's done in Christ's name and for Christ. So I guess we need to the education system, for example, law, all these systems that the left has slowly just kind of like how Biden would appoint certain judges, so that way he could sabotage future administrations and keep them from doing things that make this country Christian again, which has a great quote by Joshua Hames. He's a great guy. Have you guys talked before?
I don't think we have.
Oh, yeah. You guys would get along.
We
You
need
and
to
Joshua
connect.
Hames. Oh, for sure. I actually just texted him recently and asked a question about, what did I ask? I forget it now, but I'm actually part of a Turning Point chapter in Florida. So, regardless of whether you agree with what's going on with Turning Point, Erica, and stuff like that,
you got to
Turning
get
Point
involved
has been
there.
good for.
You really got to get
yeah,
involved. I'm highly supportive of that.
Hey, that's great to hear, man. We're doing whatever. We actually just hosted Will Witt recently, so.
That's kind of crazy because he actually came to my school my freshman year, and I remember immediately after he kind of disappeared for a while. So it's kind of cool to see him like back on the scene again. I felt like he kind of faded in the woodwork for quite some time. Oh, are you still there, brother? Oh, I think he's muted.
Baron, you there?
I think Baron's
Baron,
muted right now.
Baron, Baron, you there? I think your mic's muted. I don't know if you realize. All right. All right, Baron. I'll keep you up, and I'm gonna invite somebody else up just in case maybe something happened. All right. Let's see. All right. Question from Jay, real quick, because I promised I would ask his question. He's been waiting for a while. Okay, I'm going to try reading this name. Jose Veleda de Gunjado is a high-ranking Spanish prelate, and he estimated that the Catholic religious orders in Spain owned 2/3 of wealth in the country and 1/3 of the property in the country. They were still engaging in indulgences through the sale of cruzadas. Fascist troops regularly hold up in churches. How can you pretend, quote unquote, Catholics were prosecuted, and how do you square away these relations with your claimed economic beliefs of flattening out class contradiction? That's a question from Jay.
Yeah, very interesting question. What's the issue with the church owning property? The church is the largest really sorry, I was reading my comment section for a moment. The church is the largest charitable organization on earth, right? And helps the poor and assists the poor. Not that and I'm not going to pretend like every single local church has always been phenomenal at that mission, but the church as an institution brings people to God, which is the first and foremost mission we should all be engaged in. And on top of that, does help the poor. I have no problem with the church owning property. The guy who wrote that question sounds like Judas when he scolded Christ for having his feet washed with these, ointments that smelled really nice. And he said, oh, that money could have been given to the poor. It's so common for left-wingers to always point the finger and say, oh, well, the fact that you have gold in your church means that that's money that could have been given to the poor. But these things edify people when they enter them. Why do people want to go to European cathedrals? They want to go to be edified. That gold or that beautiful altar or what have you, it's not being used for, anyone buying anything off of it. It's used solely for the beauty of expressing the love and devotion that God brings to our lives. And that is something that touches both the highest classes in society and the lowest classes as well. Furthermore, the quote unquote, like Franco's troops were not burning down churches. Communists were, right? So this whataboutism of, oh, the church owned a lot of property, right? That's not an issue. And the church has always been the greatest advocate of the poor. Without the church's presence, there's no greater advocate for the poor except, self-indulgent communists that want to use them in their constant wars of bloodshed and starving them, just like Mao did when he, had that great famine happen from I think he exterminated one of the birds that essentially ate all the bugs that essentially ate crops, right? Or, his great push forward or the Holodomor or any of these other events. So no regime, right, that's been right wing can match the death toll of any of these left wing regimes. They have killed far more people. The secular atheist violence of these regimes is completely, in every metric, just overcoming any death toll under any of these right wing regimes. So I think this is a typical whataboutism in order to justify left wing violence within Spain, and I won't hear it.
All right, awesome. Next question from Cool Man. Does the Jewish state have a right to exist?
Again, what are we talking about? Do I think that the people that have currently been living there for years now should be forcefully removed from their land? No, but nobody has the quote unquote, nobody should be ever coerced into believing in Jesus Christ. I don't believe that of any group, right? But nobody has a quote unquote right to error or a right to not believe in Jesus Christ, right? So I don't think that a state that prides itself upon persecuting Christians or what have you has a right to keep doing that. I think that the individual people, the innocent people, Jews and non-Jews who live there, of course, have a right to, stay in their home and stuff like that. Unlike what the state of Israel has been doing to Gazans and Palestinians, forcibly removing them from their land. But no, I don't support the state of Israel. The state of Israel is a godless hellhole that is completely devoted to killing Christians and re-crucifying our Lord, just like they did in his earthly ministry.
All right, awesome. And I think that actually that question that you just answered actually answers this next question from Katz. He actually had a video that he linked, which I'll send you the link to this video in your DMs. That
gotcha.
Linked. But he wanted to know, and I think you kind of answered this. He wanted to know if you have watched the video before, and if you have, what's your opinion on what Tucker had to say about Israel and the treatment of Christians? I think you kind of answered already with what you think about the treatment of Christians in Israel, or your opinions on it with that previous question now.
I can't look at another child being gunned down in the street trying to collect water without feeling complete moral outrage at that state. And, everyone can whine and be like, oh, you're the guy who said the F word on Jubilee or what have you. That doesn't matter. When I see an innocent child being killed, when I see crucifixes being smashed on the part of a state that hates God, I have to speak up. And that doesn't mean returning violence with violence. That doesn't mean returning unjust action with unjust action, but it does mean being a witness and a bearer to justice. And I think every single one of us needs to do that. And the state of Israel has currently been the greatest purveyor of injustice in the entire world.
Amazing. Awesome. Interesting thing about Israel. I remember that guy. There was like that one there was one part of that Jubilee video. The guy with the mustache.
Oh, was it the Persian guy who looked like a Batman villain?
Yeah, I think
oh
so.
Oh my goodness,
And I
that
think
guy.
he kept talking about Iran, and I think like him and Mehdi got heated, and then I think Mehdi asked him like, what do you think about like innocent children being sniped by Israelis? And then he was like, well, what did the kids do? Did the kids do? So he said something like that. It was like, so and I think Mehdi was like, what does everybody here think? Do you guys all think that Israel should be allowed to kill kids? Is this a conservative position now? It was just interesting.
And we all, you probably heard in the video, every single one of us that was not that guy said no. We did not like that guy. Like, he talked to no one after the show was done recording and stuff like that. Like, we were totally against what he stood for. I think he was like honestly, more than Mehdi, I think he was the least popular guy there.
Yeah, I know they also had when we talked to Kai like a few weeks ago, there was Hermes was there. Chaotic Hermes was there, and I heard his part got cut out.
That is true.
I guess he called I don't know if I'm allowed to repeat it actually. I don't know if I don't want to put
yeah, he did kind of break the rule to not be antagonistic with his part, and he was being antagonistic to Mehdi, who, you know, I'm none too a fan of, but the rules are the rules, right? And you know, he like started with calling him something, and then his whole part just got cut out as a result. I think that's the whole problem, is like when people aren't willing to engage with the actual substance of what's being said, it's like, why are we doing this? You know what I mean? Like we need to be making arguments.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. I will all right, let's see. We've answered a few questions here. All right. Let's bring up somebody who's had their hand raised. We'll bring up Cam. Cam's had his hand raised for a while.
Heck
Cam,
yeah.
are you still there? Come on up. And I guess while we're waiting for Cam to come up, I will ask this. All right. From let's see, I'm trying to find a gentleman, somebody who asked a question that is still in the audience, because a few of these people have left. Oh, okay. Do you think being fired? Okay, I don't know if this is 100% a freedom of like related to freedom of speech. The question says, do you think you being fired for your political views is within a company's freedom of speech to do that? I don't know if that would be freedom of speech, but go ahead.
Is that what? Is that what the question? If you're still reading out the question, I don't want to interrupt.
Oh yeah. No, it was just. Do you think being fired for your political views is within a company's freedom of speech? I don't know if I was just saying me personally. I don't know if I would classify that freedom of.
It's
speech,
not.
like even like categorized it as that.
It's not.
But anyways, go ahead.
And it's completely unjust, because I was always, in every single job that I've worked, I've never been political. I've never brought an inappropriate dynamic to the audience. The office space. I've never been in a situation where I've never harassed employees. I've never created a contentious environment. I actually work very well with other people who even differ from me in their outlook on life or political views or what have you. And so I don't think it's within a company's ability to do that. It was something I did outside of work. It was not something that I brought into the office. And just because people wanted to persecute me, because that's what it is. The reason I got fired is because they started to harass the company I worked for, because I got doxxed. And so all these, like even the smarmy guys who came on earlier, touting their nose about how I got fired or what have you. It's like, how would you feel if just random people started going up to whatever, McDonald's you work at, and they started harassing the business owner just merely because you work there? It's like, I didn't get fired because I had any bad performance or I was unjust to anyone or I harassed anyone. I got fired because I was being politically persecuted, which is completely unjust. I don't think that should happen to most people. If I called for violence in the workplace, or I was causing harassment or or an uncomfortable work environment within actually saying something within the job environment, I would completely understand being fired, but I never did that. And so being harassed and targeted for harassment is completely unjust, and that is not free speech.
Awesome. Yeah, 100%. I actually agree with you there. I do. I agree with you 100% on that.
I mean, because dude, even people we disagree with, it's like everybody's got to eat. Like everybody's got to pay the bills somehow. And it's like, even if I disagree with someone, it's like I think it's pretty unjust to take away the means of someone like, you know, providing for themselves essentially.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I 100% agree. Okay, let's see. I will let's bring up somebody. Okay. Okay, I see this guy, but I feel like this guy's an alt account of one of the people that we kicked out earlier. Yeah, they literally just joined the server after I kicked the guy out earlier. So
yeah, that seems a little sus.
Mystic. All right, Mystic's a nice guy. We'll bring up Mystic.
Oh, heck yeah.
How's it going, Mystic? Hello. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, let me see. So I see that you like point to your Catholic beliefs for a lot of the structures in which you build your morality, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would you say like in terms of like your political opinions and like governance and everything else, would you say like a theocratic state is generally the goal, or would you say for it to keep those two separate?
That's a good question. I mean, with theocracy, like the formal, you know, if we're to be autistic about it, like definition of a theocracy is like, in this case, if it was Catholic, would be like direct rule from the Pope, which is actually not what Catholic political theology teaches. It's more like indirect rule, the idea that when the state is operating within its capacity and it's not encroaching upon any like Catholic moral teaching, the church fully leaves it alone. But the moment it starts to encroach upon any Catholic moral theology or moral teaching, that's when the church gets involved and tries to kind of assert her dominance over the state. I would say that I would support a confessionally Catholic government if I was to put a specific definition behind it, which is the idea that all the representatives, the president, the cabinet are all Catholic. They all obey Catholic teaching. They all listen to the church and they all operate in accord with their teaching. Oh, is he still there? Oh, heck yeah. I want to just make sure you're still there.
I guess in terms of those applications, don't you think that at some point when you live in a very diverse society, such as like in America, right? And you have like very diverse religious beliefs and everything else associated with that. Do you think it's very difficult to apply a lot of these Catholic beliefs in terms of governance and laws?
No, I actually do not. And what I mean by that is it's ironic that we're talking about this. Pope Leo actually had a recent address on this where for a politician to be a Catholic, a Christian, it doesn't mean that they always have to sort of operate in a confessional way, meaning, the state immediately tomorrow needs to be confessionally Catholic. But the spirit of the gospel can sort of penetrate every single law, statute, and sort of policy that they support in order to essentially affect a Catholic society. So what does this look like in practical application? Well, from the natural law, you can argue why abortion is wrong. You can argue why family structures should be protected against deviant behaviors like homosexuality or transgenderism. You can argue why we need things like objective beauty in architecture, right? Because there is an objectivity to the way we build buildings or the way that we lay out cities, right? And so really, the spirit of the gospel, even in a society that is not all Catholic or even majority Catholic, can still penetrate Catholic politics in such a way that you can operate within that society and still essentially get the same result as a result of Catholic teaching really being the natural law, if that makes sense.
I see. Okay. Well, that's the big question for the moment. So thank you for calling me up. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Absolutely. You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, Mystic, and I'll probably talk to you later tonight.
Oh,
anyways.
heck yeah.
Take care.
Dude, he was super kind. You weren't kidding about him. He's a great dude.
Yeah, Mystic is one of my good friends, actually. We hang out like almost every night. All right, let's see here. Alexander. Okay, actually, yeah, we'll bring up Alexander. Actually, okay, this guy's been waiting a while. I'll bring this guy up.
Heck yeah.
All right.
Oh, what's up?
How's it going?
Hello.
It's going good. Okay, I do have like a question or two. Something I'll start off with is it's pretty much a dead horse, kind of. So I don't know how great a question it is, but it's the newest Pope Leo quote about migrations. I would change the question: what is the global North doing to help the global South in its situation that forced them to migrate? From what I understand, you're a Groyper type guy, so. Curious what you think about that.
I kind of misheard. Could you repeat that question a little bit? I just heard global South migration, but I kind of missed that part. It seemed like the mic got a little fuzzy, so I couldn't really hear it.
Yeah, my mic isn't great. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
I would change the question. What is the global North doing to help the global South in its situation that forced him to migrate? That's a quote from the Pope. From 2 days ago. It's kind of a beaten horse about the Pope and migration. I'm curious what you think about that as a Groyper, Nick Fuentes type of guy.
So the church does support us upholding our borders. That's something that Pope Leo has even said in one of his recent airplane interviews. And the church has even supported the idea that we can restrict all immigration, right? It's really sort of up to the judgment of an individual nation and in what capacity they can operate in terms of their laws surrounding immigration, so long as the dignity of everyone involved is being upheld. So of course, it would be wrong, like if there were women and children at the border to, say, do something violent or whatever, which is something I'm completely against as a Catholic, and even, Groypers are against, and anyone of really any human decency, right? But that doesn't mean that we have to let them into our society and integrate them into our society. We could send them back, and we would send them back, but of course, using ethical standards to do so. What I would say is that I am, when we get our affairs in order here, I'm all for maybe helping other countries surrounding us in order that they may be able to better suffice for their citizens, so that there isn't a temptation to migrate out of those countries. If that looks like the church getting involved, or private charities, or even maybe some government aid or something, like the I think was it the Marshall Plan after World War II for Europe, rebuilding Europe? I think it was the Marshall Plan, right? Kind of like a Marshall Plan type situation. I'm fully supportive of that, right? If they're if we're able to affect a situation where it not only benefits our country and our people are the ones that remain here always and forever, but also every single country around us is able to be put in a better political situation so that there's not even a temptation to migrate, I think that's great, honestly. But currently, as it stands, we have a lot of problems here, and I think we need to focus more on our domestic problems before we can help put out someone else's house fire, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Do have two more questions.
Yes,
This
sir.
one I'm kind of I don't know how to word it on this. I don't know if there's how do you put this with the situation here about the I don't want to say that, it's gonna Jewish people say that if like someone like you, someone else were to take power, what would you do to like I don't know, solve that issue? Because it feels like a lot of them have been getting away. So this is normie talk, but like the Epstein files, all of that's just pretty much child sacrifice. I mean, what should be done to a lot of these people
So
if we were to actually take power?
My unironic position, contrary to I think what some people might believe about me, is I don't believe in anyone being persecuted, of course. I'm against all persecution. I want everyone's human dignity to be upheld. And so, of course, I wouldn't paint all, Jewish people with some broad brush or what have you. But sadly, I think as you kind of even recognize in your question, there is this kind of like moral suit of armor that a lot of Jewish people have put around themselves because they are Jewish to do some of the worst and most horrible and cruel things imaginable, right? So, someone gets called out for being just a bad person and they're like, oh, but I'm Jewish. And for you to criticize that, that's anti-Semitic. no, you're just a bad person. And I think that justice should be upheld and you should be, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. In regards to something like the Epstein files, I think every single person in those files that is guilty of some kind of crime against children or some involvement of Epstein should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. And I would even go so far as to say, given the death penalty for hurting innocent children, our little ones, right? And
the papacy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say, doesn't the papacy, aren't they fully against the death penalty? So that is actually a prudential decision. It's not something that is a part of unchanging moral law. So there's been no change in the teaching on the death penalty. Basically, what it is that recent popes have advocated for not using it if suitable imprisonment methods can be used to protect society, which is perfectly understandable. But actually, Pope Benedict XVI himself one time had a discourse where he said, if a Catholic upholds the death penalty, they're not breaching any teaching of the church. It's only if they upheld something like euthanasia or abortion that they would not be able to receive Holy Communion and thus wouldn't be considered Catholic anymore. All right, I guess that makes sense. One more question.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you know who Sarah Stalk is since you were on the Jubilee thing.
I do.
And all that. And I'm sure you know what happened with the February with the whole Elijah Schaffer. You heard about that, right?
Yeah. Yes. It's sadly, it was a pretty personal event, I guess you could say. I've been pretty good friends with her and stuff like that. So it was very and her husband. It was very, very difficult.
Yeah. My question is, would you still crack her after that? I think I would.
I mean,
I don't know if
no comment. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna go there with any of that kind of stuff. No comment. That's a very personal
watch. It's my personal opinion. I'm sorry, but I need to be said.
No, that's okay. Dang, that's a heck of a way to end the questions. No, I no comment.
All right. It was good talking to you, man.
Dude, it was great talking to you. Thanks for coming up, brother.
See ya.
All right. Thanks, GD. I really appreciate you.
If it was like any other figure, I would have an answer, but I'm like, there's some personal connect. Like, I'm not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I completely understand. All right. Let's see here. Did I already ask this question from is Sword still here? He's still here. Okay, Sword. What's your ideal economic system and political system? And also, what's your opinion on HOP? HOPPE.
HOPPA?
HOP. Yeah, HOPPA. Sorry.
Oh, that's three great questions. Since I've kind of touched on it before, I'll keep it a little shorter, but political situation, I would like a confessional Catholic state. The form of government doesn't really matter to me, to be honest, contrary to what a lot of people might think about me. I'm generally opposed to democracy because I don't think it affects a very Catholic society. And I think everywhere it's been tried, it actually degrades sort of the morals and the dignity of the people that live under that democracy. But if conceivably there was a democracy that could be Catholic, hey, I'd be all in on it. I'd be all in on a republic. I'd be all in on a state with a single leader. It doesn't matter to me. I see kind of the political structure as a means to an end. I just want a confessional Catholic state. In terms of economics, of course, following Catholic social teaching, but if there was to be given a term that kind of most closely aligned with that kind of economic system, probably corporatism, the idea that like businesses and the people work together for a harmonious society, and there is corporate representation for the workers so that they feel like their rights and their dignity are being upheld by their employer and by the state. And then, oh gosh, the final question, Hoppe. Hans Hermann Hoppe, I have not read much of his work, but I've been friends with a lot of people who've been very influenced by him. I would love to get more into his work. I've heard he is an excellent author, and some of the excerpts that I've read seem pretty good. So I'd love to maybe check that out a little bit more.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. This gentleman says he is Orthodox and he has a question about Catholicism. Come on up.
Oh, heck yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, brother?
Doing good. I'm following you on Twitter.
Oh, nice. Heck yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering because I wrote two things down here. Is I'm an America First supporter. I've been watching Nick since 2020. And I'm an Eastern Orthodox catechumen. And while the Gen Z America First movement is distinctly, led by Catholics, with like Nick as the leader of the Gen Z movement at the very least, um, as a major Catholic in the sphere, what's your personal take on like allying or integrating with non-Catholics like Orthodox or traditionally minded Protestants and other groups? And along with that, how would you achieve this despite there being various amounts of animosity between these groups, at least in the online sphere?
That's an excellent question. I think that really, when it comes down to it, a lot of us want the same goals. We want to see an America that upholds the dignity of life, that creates the best situation for our families and to have families, that values God and puts Him first, and we see His handiwork in all of our laws. And I think that's something that all Catholics, Eastern Orthodox people, more tradition-minded Protestants can, agree upon and get behind. So I would say that I am very much supportive of an alliance there, so long as there's no, and I think coming from the Orthodox catechumen world, you would agree with this, there's no false ecumenism, there's no kind of like on a theological level, like, oh, kumbaya, we're basically one, right? But on a political level, working together, I think, is absolutely essential. And in fact, I actually do that a lot in a lot of my IRL work. I've been very involved in my own state, and half of my friend group is Eastern Orthodox. So we're actually already affecting that mission.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see because my tendency online, for example, is I follow a lot of the Orthodox accounts, and say for example, him, Ben Luigi. I think he puts out a lot of good stuff, for example, but because of like one incident years ago he had with like Nick in a super chat and then drama with like goipers, is now like the Orthodox have to war with America First, and it's like, well, and always take the side of the opposition. And Catholics do very similar things. It's not like it's exclusive, but like, how would you say, like, what would be a path to, like, say, online among influencers or, beyond just like a local level in real life? How would you recommend people begin to reconcile, or what would be a path to reconciliation?
I think a path to reconciliation, without speaking ill of any of the people that you just mentioned, is we can't be unfair to each other. And I think that's where a lot of the animosity is created. If somebody is Eastern Orthodox, but they they want to have a discussion about Catholicism that comes from a good place of faith, meaning they are talking about like the filioque way, or they're talking about like the papacy or what have you from a historical standpoint. That's an excellent discussion. There can be a lot of fruit gained there. What I don't appreciate is when some prominent voices online will call my church the pedophile church, or they'll post Catholic bishop is bad at being a bishop, this means Catholicism is false, right? Or priest had some scandal, that means Catholicism's false. Because I think many good-willed Eastern Orthodox people recognize I could do the same thing for y'all, right? I could post some random bishop saying this or that, or some random priest engaged in some scandal. And I would never in a million years want to use that as a means for having a discussion with an Eastern Orthodox individual. I think that's completely unjust. I think that's callous. I think that's unfair, and it comes from an unchristian place. And I think it's behavior that none of us should engage in. I don't want to see Catholics engaging in that kind of behavior towards Eastern Orthodox individuals, and I don't want to see Eastern Orthodox individuals engage in that behavior towards Catholic individuals. And I think if we can get over that and keep the conversation centered on truth and Jesus Christ, that's kind of what we need to get over in order to affect proper political alliances and decrease any and all animosity.
Yeah, I agree with that. And a second question that's adjacent, but it's also a bit different is, since I'm Orthodox, obviously I would not support what I would see as a false union with the Roman Catholic Church, but there does seem to be a possibility of some sort of reunion. It maybe with the Greek Church and the Roman Church. So, as a Catholic, what would be your take on the chances of reunion or end to the schism, and how would you, as a Catholic, want to see it handled? For example, I've seen this discussion in Orthodox circles. If a union was to happen, how do you handle the hundreds of saints that one side does not accept currently, or certain writings, certain books. So like, some Orthodox say like no Catholic saints can be accepted, while others say, well, be case by case. What would be like a Catholic view on this? How would you handle, say, 1,000 years of separation?
I have maybe a little bit of a difficult answer, but it comes from a good place. There would have to be concessions made on the Eastern Orthodox side in terms of like, we couldn't venerate Paisios, we couldn't venerate like Seraphim Rose or any figures like that. But that being said, pre-schism saints that, because I know there's a few actually that the Eastern Orthodox venerate that I don't think we have any formal cause for or what have you. I think probably those holy men and women could be venerated. I think that even some post-schism, not in terms of like in the like 20th century or like the 17th or much later on, but during the medieval era where it wasn't really clear who was in communion with who, I think that could be on a case-by-case basis, because there's some saints that we venerate that technically lived, maybe didn't have contact with Rome, but we don't consider to be schismatic. Like, I believe, oh gosh, it's going to kill me, but like Saint Sergei in Russia, who was kind of nicknamed the Russian Saint Francis, we venerate him as Catholics. And I think that he, honestly, from my perspective, lived and died as a Catholic. I think if you had cases like that, we could certainly venerate those individuals and consider them saints. But the filioque would have to be accepted. The papacy would have to be accepted. No post-schism saints that break the kind of rules of being Catholic could be venerated. In terms of like patriarchal authority or power, I don't think that the Pope needs to intervene in every single situation unless it's like absolutely necessary to preserve the gospel, to preserve the integrity of Christ's teaching. And so I think there's a lot of autonomy that patriarchs have always honestly been afforded within Catholicism, but by rejoining the Catholic Church, they would still be able to uphold, so long as they are always in concordance with Catholic teaching.
I've heard cases that some of the Eastern churches in the Catholic Church, they venerate saints like Palamas, and the Pope or the main church does not intervene or stop that. And that's an argument I've seen Sevacontis use, which actually I used to be Sevacontis some years back, but they pointed that out, that at least the modern church seems to allow that to happen. Eastern churches, well, Orthodox would point that out, be like, well, look, you always let these Eastern churches venerate our saints. So is there a chance that something like that may occur, or like is that just like a thing that shouldn't be happening, that the church just hasn't cracked down on?
That's a thing that shouldn't be happening, that the church just hasn't cracked down on. In fact, there's been multiple publications officially from Melkite outlets and Eastern Catholic outlets that say, Gregory Palamas does not have a formal canonization within the East. For someone to just merely venerate someone, I don't think disproves either Catholicism or Eastern Orthodoxy, because that doesn't mean it's necessarily tacitly approved by that church. Like, for instance, I know Father Seraphim Rose in the Eastern Orthodox world, if you go to say, or it's not Seraphim Rose, I think it's John Maxikovich or one of those men venerated in the Orthodox world. I believe if you go to a Greek church, he's considered to not be venerated or considered to not be a saint. And I certainly think Eastern Orthodox people would look at that and say, well, that's just a discrepancy of like, there hasn't been discipline here. So that discrepancy doesn't entail like the content of what Eastern Orthodoxy is. I would say a similar thing about our Catholic faith, right? Like, I know there are some Eastern Catholics that just do their own thing, and literally it's the opposite of even what officially the Eastern Catholic churches teach. I don't think that's a way to discount Catholicism. I think that's just a lay person doing something random, even if it's on the parish level. Again, I think you see examples in church history where there were particular figures that were venerated, that were never officially canonized or what have you, that the church later came down on and said, this person is not a saint, we're cracking down on their veneration. So I think it's just a disciplinary discrepancy.
Yeah, honestly, the more I think about it, while obviously doctrine and hypothetical, you say reunion council would be a heated topic, honestly, saints seems like it's going to be like, or martyrs is going to be the harder one.
I
Because
agree.
online is that Orientals get really mad if because you don't, at least the East doesn't accept them as martyrs, while the people in the East are like, well, we'll do a reunion, but you can't have your saints. While you kind of said like, well, vice versa. So that's honestly probably going to be more harder than just reconciling doctrine.
I would kind of agree with that, actually, because I think there's been a lot of strides in Eastern Orthodox and Catholic ecumenism, especially over the past 60 years. Primarily in the regions of like ecclesiology and even the filioque. But I think, yeah, that's going to be a very difficult contention that is not going to be easily ironed